After the very event when Adam met Eve, they had 3 sons, Cain, Abel, and Seth. According to the biblical account, these brothers took partners to procreate and became the founders of the human family. However, the question arises, who were the wives of those same Adams, given that there was no one else on Zembla? This complex question continues to interest believers and theologians all over the world, and I tried to understand it. Daughters of Lilith. 100 years ago, in 1925, Marina Tsvetaeva wrote to Boris Pasternak, "Do you remember Lilith? Was there someone before Adam? Your longing for me is reminiscent of Adam's longing for Lilith, about the one who existed before the first and innumerable. Hence my dislike for Eve. Now no one is shocked by the information that Adam had a woman before Eve. It was Lilith. Although not mentioned in the traditional Old Testament canon, the story of Adam's first wife is described in the Talmud and other ancient Jewish writings. However, many Christians learned about that same Lilith from ordinary non-religious literature. The image of this mysterious, exotic, and desirable woman who violates norms and traditions was created and popularized by the poets of the Silver Age. Lilith was transferred into their lines by such authors as the already mentioned Marina Tsvetaeva, Anna Akhmatova, Fyodor Sologub, and Nikolai Gumilyov. It is especially curious that the image of Lilith in Gumilyov's poetry reflects his personal love tragedy. You know her. In her personal diary, Akhmatova mentioned that for him, she herself had long become Lilith, that is, the embodiment of the dark principle in a woman. I found the information about Lilith controversial and varied, but still an alluring personality or image, if you will. In various sources, we can find different interpretations of her image. In Hebrew mythology, Lilith is represented as a demoness associated with storms, troubles, and the wasteland. In the Talmud, she is described as a demon with wings and long hair who lives in abandoned houses and tempts men during their sleep. In Kabbalistic texts such as the Book of Zohar, Lilith is Adam's first wife who left him and became a child abductor. In the ancient source, the alphabet of Ben Sira, Lilith is described as a freedom-loving and proud woman. She refused to obey Adam, considering herself equal to him as a creation of God. When Lilith left her husband, he turned to God and he sent 3 angels for her. However, Lilith refused to return to Adam. For this, she suffered punishment. And here there are 3 options for punishment. All of them are quite cruel, especially for a woman. 1. Her children die in infancy. 2. She is forced to give birth to demons every time. 3. She suffers from infertility. There are many terrible tales and religious legends, often parables about the above-mentioned Lilith, which is why her name has become associated with something mysterious, seductive, and at the same time bringing misfortune. As a result, she was removed from history. But everything is not so simple over time, since poets and writers of all times often returned to the image of Lilith and offered their own interpretations. An interesting point, the French migrant writer Anatole France once wrote a novella, Lilith's Daughter, which says, "Her daughters, born from a mysterious coitus, are immortal just like her, and like her, are free in their actions and thoughts, for they can neither do what is pleasing to God nor anger him." Judging by this, we can assume that those same daughters of Lilith, born from mysterious intercourse with demons or Adam himself, could in theory become the wives of Cain, Abel, and Seth, which is quite creepy, but at the same time attractive for mysterious folklore. Daughters of Eve. If we again focus on the canon of the text of the Old Testament, the children of Adam and Eve were born after the expulsion of their parents, the first people from Eden. But the point that they could not have children because they sinned is doubtful. And that's why. On that very first day, the day of creation, God blessed Adam and Eve and told them to increase and multiply and fill the earth, which is logical. And Eve got her name later, when Adam himself called her Eve, which means life. And we remember that their first children were Cain and Abel, who became a landowner and a shepherd, choosing simple things. Later, Adam and Eve had a third son, Sepha. During their 930-year life, Adam and Eve had 33 sons and 22 daughters. Based on this, we can assume a rather unusual hypothesis. Boys and girls from the same family married each other. Today, this causes shock and rejection. In some places, there is even a law against it, but before it was a little different, as we see in historical films. This was the norm, so as not to mix blood with the unworthy. Of course, close relationships are fraught with consequences, but they do not always occur. In modern breeding, there are even systems of inbreeding, when inbreeding does not harm the offspring and genotype. There is also indirect evidence that earlier human populations had connections and children between relatives. The fact is that the descendants of Adam and Eve did not have long life. The further we move away from our ancestors, the more noticeable the reduction in life expectancy. This can be explained by mutations in genes, which still accumulate with each generation of close relationships. Deformities and diseases became more and more without fresh blood. When Abraham still lived, men could marry their half-sisters without any problems. However, already in the time of Moses, according to legend, God issued a ban on marriage between relatives, saying, "Do not marry your sister, nor your father's sister, nor another girl who has such a relationship with you that prevents marriage. It is enough that you were born from the same womb with them, or are connected with them in some other way." John Chrysostom, Interpretation of Leviticus 18:11-12. This prohibition indicates that in more recent times, awareness of the harms of in-law marriages has become more widespread and obvious. However, turning to scientific research, we see that they refute the idea of the divine creation of the world. Charles Darwin was the first to propose his theory of evolution, which explains the gradual development of living organisms. This theory allows us to understand where humans got the vestigial organs that are also present in animals. Darwin doubted that an intelligent creator could endow his creation with useless organs. The sacred texts do not answer this question, so scientists do not think about who the wives of the first sons of Adam and Eve were. Thus, the question of the wives of the sons of Adam and Eve remains open. Different versions and theories offer different answers, but none of them can be conclusively proven or disproved. Believers and scientists continue to search for answers to this question, but so far we can only guess who the wives of Cain, Abel, and Seth became. If you like this episode, subscribe to the channel and like this video. Don't forget to share with your friends, and also watch one of these interesting videos that appeared on the screen. Just click on the picture. Thank you for your attention.